welcome back to your regular Ohio National Pack number station, also known as a deadman switch for the government, in order to fire warheads upon this radio's destruction. You are listening to 104.249 in the morning. Here as always is this fun devlog. In this part I will be discussing the new ending logic. Even though I've already made a couple of devlogs about the end of levels, I was very indecisive about what I wanted the actual endings for my levels to be, but now I have an actual idea for it, this being that I'm just going to create one enemy at the end of a level that is very satisfying to kill, and then just have it so the player has to kill one of these at the end of the level, and they reward you with the item that you should get at the end of the level, this being the treasure tales that the game is about. The design for this is a chest that is a mimic, or a living chest, that has a funny eyeball on it, and wings, and it flaps about. I wanted to go for a more cartoony look to the actual visual style of this chest, as opposed to the rest of the game's visual style, so it's matching more into Pep-Pel's visual design than the scenery of the level, but I think it's very fun. I had a lot of fun designing the chest. I especially like its big eyeball. The eyeball of the chest was designed specifically so I could make it explode in a satisfying way. This is to make the actual chest itself more satisfying and fun to break open. The chest also has wings because it made more sense for the chest to actually be able to fly around in levels, which also made it very easy to design the end of the level, in opposed to having the chest have legs. As funny as that would be now that I'm thinking about it, for the chest to run around away from you. Having the chest fly around with wings would be more fun to chase after at the end of a level to break open. The chest has a few different parts to it, this being the top of the chest, the bottom of the chest's head turned over, and the version of the chest where the eyeball is shattered and broken on the front of it. These are for the animations of the chest changing, so when you slam into it, the eyeball breaks, shatters into a funny little effect, and then the chest will open up and show the trail that is inside of it. In terms of colour, I wanted something that would stand out in most levels, so the chest itself has a light pinkish wings, it has a bright purple eyeball, and it has a more orangey or yellow wooden colour to it, so it's very saturated, it's very colourful when compared to the other chests in the level, and it stands out and looks enticing for the player. As far as level readability goes, it doesn't really read well as a end of the level, so I'm probably just going to add a thing in the tutorial that will tell the player, hey, these chests are at the end of levels, break them open with your big meaty paws and you will be able to get a funny treasured item. The actual animations for the chest are very simple. Originally it had an animation for flying in a figure 8 position, but this was very difficult for maintaining the animation position when you slam into it because it has to maintain its position. So I changed that to be handled with scripting, with the chest moving, so now it only has six animations. Now it only has 6 animations. It has the idle while the chest is flying around. The flying is going to be covered with coding, so the idle is just wiggling around and flapping its wings. When it is smashed open, the wings disable, the top of the head also opens, and there is an effect for the actual chest opening up. The effect that plays as the chest opens up, because this is technically part of an animation, is just a very satisfying impact effect that I wanted to play. Essentially, I wanted something that would look very fun and satisfying when the player does it, so you have a very good positive feedback for ending a level. The same way that I have a funny little effect when Pep-Pel is murdered brutally, I want it to be satisfying and fun for the player to finish a level. So I have this nice little effect of a goopy glass breaking while also having goop fly out from where the eyeball of the chest was, and parts of the eyeball breaking off and flying in different directions. I like this effect a lot. It's a very easy effect for breakable objects, especially when it's a 2D sprite. I can just draw versions of the sprite with parts missing and have them fly away as a particle system. It is oh so easy. I cannot recommend it enough. If you're doing a 2D game and you want things to break really satisfyingly, just make a sprite particle of them breaking. It's so easy. The chest then has an impact animation of it going in one direction based on the player's distance, or the potion's distance that broke it and opened it. So I just got the distance from the impact effect, and I will just move the chest in that direction with the animation, either left, right, up or down, blending into other directions based on the actual distance values. Again, super easy, just squash and stretch, push in a direction and make the chest wiggle around. And it looks satisfying. Then I had the chest opening. Again, very easy, we just had the chest tilting, switching sprites to the version of the chest where the top of the chest is tilted backwards, and then I have the tail of that level fly out and pop out of the chest with also a nice effect of a glow sprite, giving it more of an emphasis of a funny little treasure. And that's it for animations. I so do love animating. Next is the scripting logic. There is a little bit of logic for this, but it's not anything overly complicated or not done before. As stated, I have already made the level ending logic, so I just had to rework the current system that I had to accommodate for the mimic chests that are going to be at the end of each level now. So all I did was I made it so instead of having it so the player has to make contact with it, I wait for the player to break open the chest. This is done in an interesting way because the chest is not a breakable object, but has to break when the player impacts with it, or if the player impacts with it with a potion. So what I do is I wait for something to make a collision with the chest, either a potion or the player. I will then check if it is the potion or the player. If it's the player, I will check if the player is either dashing or slamming, because that's how the player can open the chest. Or if it's a potion, I will just break. If it's a potion, I will tell the potion to also break, because the potion making contact with the chest counts as a breakable object, and therefore should break. Or if the player is using a slam or dash attack, I will tell the chest to also open, and then I will tell the player to recoil from this slam or dash attack as they usually would. Once this is happening, I get the root scripting, which is the scripting for the actual level exit itself. I tell it the player has impacted with this, and the level can end. What we do now is we wait for the player to land on the ground. So the player is finishing their recoil animation, they're just going to land on the ground. Once the player has landed on the ground, I'm going to lock them into position. I'm going to have the player play a new animation, more on that later, of them doing a fun little jig. And then I'm going to make it so the level ending UI with all the statistics is going to pop down, and I'm going to make it so when the player makes the next input button on the spacebar, this being the one that takes them to the next level, the level is going to transition back to the hub world because the level is over. Overall, I think this is a much faster version of a level end. I think it's a more stylish version of a level end. I think it's a bit more unique than what I was currently going for, and the other versions of level ends were a lot of long animations that would either get boring or just being not super interesting. So I think this is more dynamic because the player gets to do something. It's faster. The current animation is pretty quick from hitting the box, the chest, into being able to exit the level if that is what the player is wanting to do. So there's less issues than I had with the current ending with the ending that I have made now. Finally, we have the actual animation that the player plays upon ending the level. I like this a lot. I don't like the beginning of this animation, but I really like the ending of this animation. I think this animation looks really goofy and silly, which is definitely what I was wanting to go for, because I wanted to make Pep-Pel do a silly little motion. I love when she looks like a wacky little clown. What happens in this animation is it's once the player has finished impacting with the chest, or if they throw a potion and hit the chest and the level is ending. What happens here is that Pep-Pel lands on the floor, she recoils up a little bit, so there's a little bit of squash and stretch, but she may already be on the floor, so I just made it so she squishes either way, and it's not going to look too glaringly issued. Then she does a couple fist pumps, she prepares to do a backflip, she does a backflip, she lands and then goes into a really fun pose that I like a lot, where she has her thumbs up. This is a new sprite I drew for Pep-Pel, the rare elusive Pep-Pel thumb sprite. And then this also transitions into a looping animation of her just bouncing around with her thumbs up. I adore this pose. It looks so dorky and dumb. I love it so very much. I really wanted a fun little pose for Pep-Pel to do at the end of a level. Originally, I had ideas for her to cover up the entire screen with a transitioned animation, and then you would just have a big old view of Pep-Pel, which I do like the idea of quite a lot. But I like this idea more, where it's just her in the scene with her thumbs up, and she's saying, "Yeah, I got the treasure. I took a life today. I killed a funny little mimic chest, and I got treasure." But I like it a lot. It looks bouncy, it looks fun, it looks really silly. The first part of the animation where she does a couple of fist pumps and then the backflip I'm okay with because it's very fast and helps transition into the other animation. It helps mask her sprites changing for her foot and her thumb, but I don't think the fist pump is necessarily my favorite animation. I think it looks just okay, so I may change that in the future, but overall I'm a pretty big fan of this animation. In general, I think it looks nice. Especially the thumbs up. Mostly the thumbs up. Almost exclusively the thumbs up. And that's the devlog. I'm still working through the desert level, which, upon uploading of this video, is probably done. But I'm still working through it now in order to finish the desert level, so all the visuals are in place and all the collectibles are accounted for, coins are placed, etc, etc. Levels aren't super difficult to make. Well, they are. But the tedium of making a level is just arranging everything. So I want to take a quick break and finish the level exits or the level endings logic. So I, 1, had something to place at the end of the desert because the current setup I had absolutely did not work with the ending of the desert as I had planned. And 2, because I really wanted to do it and it's been bothering me that I really don't like the way levels end in my game. So now I'm really glad that I have something that I feel is at least unique and fun and interesting for players, and also is unique and fun and interesting for players. The actual visuals for these being the Pep-Pel thumb sprite and the mimic are something that I drew to test the new drawing tablet I had purchased along with the sprites, and I had a lot of fun using it. I think it definitely helped a lot in the artistic integrity of Pep-Pel. And that's it for devlog. I'm now going to hit my microphone with the palm, the base of my palm on my right hand a couple times while saying goodbye. Bye! Bye! Devlog over! Bye! Bye!